the immigration offices in different countries should have a big deep freezer.
So that they'll
So if you say you're coming to this part of Canada, they put you in there for 10 minutes and see if you survive.
Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. Obadiah here, and I have Bennett with me. So today we are going to share our experience as international students. So Bennett and I attended the University of Saskatchewan to do our master's program, and this is just to talk about some of the experiences that we had. So it hopefully helps people who want to come in to do their master's program or PhD, or those who are yet to, or those who are already in and they are confused and they really need some information. Yeah, so we'll just talk about it. Ben, so how how was your school experience? Was it fun?
Yeah, I'll say it was different and fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess we'll just share as and when. So the first one is difference in culture.
Culture shock.
Culture shock, yes.
Yeah.
I think for my experience, I saw Canadians be very, very reserved and quiet. So I think from where I'm coming from, people meet you. You can meet a very random person that you don't really know, and you can start a conversation with them, and they tend to be your friends, or something like that. I saw that was a very different thing with Canadians. It's usually just a smile and hi, then they pass. So that was one first cultural shock that I had.
You know my biggest one?
Which one?
The food.
Of course, to be food.
Yeah.
It was all sugary and blunt.
Yeah, and Canadians in general don't eat spicy food.
Yeah.
And I like a lot of pepper, a lot of spice. So that was different.
Yeah.
And you go to the restaurants, there are several foods which are great, but you don't see foods that you see in like every restaurant, like the jollof rice and other Ghanaian food,
You'll be
right?
eating potatoes.
Yeah, lots of salad and meat,
Yeah, and I felt, I don't know, but that's my palate, but just starting to eat the foods, I felt it was a bit sweeter and blunt. I just like spicy food, so for me that's one thing. Then what about social interactions? How did you feel?
Yeah, like you know one interesting thing, like in school you go to you have a class with somebody.
Yeah.
You'll be all nice, and outside the classroom the person doesn't know you.
Oh my goodness.
The person doesn't know you. It's like you're a stranger. Like, what is going on here?
Guys, so I had a full class. Normally when we're doing for research programs or master's programs, you still take classes. So there was this class that I took, and we had this group. Oh, we were great together. We did so well. We had very good grades then. I was so excited. So the next day, I saw one of my team members, and I was like, "Oh, hi!" Just looked right straight through me and just passed. I'm like, "What?" Then when I go home, I told Ben, "What's wrong? What's wrong with Kanye?" Yeah, but anyway, I think it's more of an individual person. That's more of individual. So there are people who are really nice and outgoing, and but I think in general I saw most Canadians to be more reserved and into themselves, even though they would smile to you, but that's about it. You don't get to have the free conversations and stuff like that unless they've known you for some time. Then so having a classmate does not necessarily mean they're your friends.
Exactly, yeah.
That was one main thing that I saw was quite different. Yeah.
You know the one I loved most?
What?
The harsh winters.
Are you sure you loved them? I don't think you loved them.
You know one experience that I had?
What?
So it was, I think, in December, which was quite cold. Mm-hmm. So I woke up one day, looked out of my apartment windows, and I saw
bright and shiny.
I saw the sun. It was quite bright and the sun was out there, so I'm like, oh great,
good weather.
Good weather. So I did not take my jacket.
Oh no.
The moment I stepped out of the apartment, you know, the cold breeze that blew on my face.
You were met with the...
I just ran back and I'm like, can I survive in this country?
Yeah, I think for me, the first day I stepped here, it was -18. And -18. And I think, Bennett took me around, so we went to see my supervisor, and I met a few people that, you know, I was in contact with before I came, and they were like, oh, you came on the best day. Today is very warm. It's -18, and we've had harsh weather. Like just about a week ago, we had about -50. So today is very warm. You're very lucky to. I was freezing, guys. I was freezing that day. I'm like, what are these people talking about? So I just smiled and nodded, but boy, I was so cold on that day. Yeah, but what else?
Yeah, and in the winter, clearing snow, walking in the snow, and it gets really slippery. You know, it was fun for me walking from my apartment to school. Because you will see people slip and fall.
It was a whole comedy show for you.
Some were not fun because
they get hurt.
You know, people get hurt, but you know,
sliding through. You have to develop your skills of walking in the snow.
Yeah, it's actually a skill. And when you start driving here too, that's a different skill.
Oh my goodness.
Winter driving is different
like
from summer.
Skating. Oh,
you know, so
boy.
Yeah, that was a whole experience. And we still experience it even today.
Oh yeah,
so.
And I think even like when you come for the first time, I think the best thing to do is learn from people. See how they are walking in the snow. Please, this is not a fashion show.
Yeah.
If you try to walk the way we normally walk in Africa, you're going to keep falling and you get hurt. So you have to learn from the people who have stayed here for a while. Just learn the skills so that you don't get hurt.
Yeah, and one thing I learned when I first came was to tell you dress in layers. You know, and that's because in Saskatchewan, like in a day, the weather could range from let's say 0 degrees to -40. You know, there's a huge range.
Changes within
so when you dress in layers, let's say you have this shirt on, you have a sweater on, and you have a winter jacket on. So as the weather changes, you can adapt to it. Yeah. So we're still experiencing it. So just reach out to us if you're about to. You know what I told somebody someday that the immigration officers in different countries should have a big deep freezer. So if you say you're coming to this part of Canada, they put you in there for 10 minutes and see if you survive.
So that you get the results.
Oh yeah.
Or even at home, when you know everything is said, when you're about to come, just wear a t-shirt or something and just get a freezer. I think people have cold stores and you know they have this room freezers. You can just go and stay there and see if you can survive it. Then you know you're good. Yeah, and I think the other thing was feeling homesick. I mean, for me, I left most of my family.
No, I was here when you came, so
I didn't really.
You didn't really feel it, right?
Yeah, I think for me, I had Bennett here, so I didn't feel that much homesick. But I think his might have been different because he was here by himself.
Yeah, I mean, I made good friends here, but you know, from time to time, I just felt like, you know, I should probably be home. I should.
Why have I come into this cold?
Yeah, I should book the next flight because I mean, I was doing something meaningful in Ghana before I came here. I'm like, what's all this stress with school, the weather, the food, and you know, like everything is different.
Psych yourself.
Church, like, everything is different.
So everything is different. I would say the cultural, like we mentioned earlier, the cultural shock is in different angles. Really, it's not just the weather. Yes, the weather is cold, but it's very different here. You'll be surprised at how the variety, like the separation between what we experience in Ghana and what we experience here is like so much different. Yeah. So what about the school, like the difference in school?
Classwork, schoolwork.
Yeah.
The first thing I guess is in like writing, right? Assignments, project work. Because Canadian English is slightly different from Ghanaian, which
we were colonized by.
Yeah, we have the
British,
British
right?
system,
Yeah.
and Canadian use more of the American, I believe.
Yeah.
So something like we will say aluminium, Canadians will say aluminum. So the first time I said aluminium in class, like
everyone was
do I mean aluminum?
What about line and queue?
Yeah. So in Ghana you say, well, form a queue, or the guys are in the queue. Here they'll say a line. So there are those slight differences.
Varieties. And sometimes I think even with conversations, like you say something, and I remember I said yesternight, and one of my classmates was like, "Oh, that's a good word. I never knew there was something like yesternight."
Yeah.
But it's something that we say really back in Ghana, and nobody acted like that. So I was like, "Oh, I'm really at a different place."
Yeah, and so the writing was key. So like you have to quickly adapt to learn how to write a Canadian way, else you just lose marks in school.
Yeah, you just have to.
Yeah, and there are a lot of people who proofread and help out with that, so that should not be a big problem.
And you need to actually look out for such people because they are usually not available. Yeah, I think for me, I was lucky because Bennett had already gone through the system, so some of these things I didn't have to struggle to figure them out. But it's something that you should really look out for. There are people who can proofread your work and help you to tune it towards the Canadian way of writing.
Yeah, and in Canada, even aside school, there are a lot of people from different countries, different cultures.
Yeah.
So one thing you experience is different accents.
Yeah.
So a lot of Asians, a lot of Europeans, a lot of Chinese, Australians. So and so that's one thing in class. I know some people will struggle to understand my accent. That's the same way I struggle to understand a lot of other people's accents.
So I think that shouldn't be for me. At the beginning, I was worried about people understanding my accent, and after I took a few classes, I was like, I'm not the only one. We have varieties, so I felt free. And
in most cases, even though you have a different accent, your English is better.
Yes, it sounds really. I mean, that's true. That's true because I don't know about. I mean, if someone is new and is hearing my accent, they'll say, "Oh, I probably have a thick accent," but comparatively, I think our accent is much better.
Did you notice any difference in the cost of living?
Which one? The one that I'm buying. I'm buying common pepper for $5 and I convert it to.
One thing I tell people is when you come here and you're buying something, don't convert it to your.
Please, I'll convert.
Your home currency, because you buy a bottle of water for.
Please, I will convert. I could not believe my eyes when I went to buy palm oil. Ghana, we have palm oil. I went to buy that and just a little bottle and it was going for $20. So I converted it to Ghana cedis. I was like, oh my goodness, this is so expensive. Yeah, I think the best thing to do is to let go of how much you buy stuff at home, because I mean most of the things that we do have international grocery shops here. We have, I think, Nigerian and Ghanaian. There are other ones, I think Indian and definitely you'll be able to get some of these products there. But mind you, they have to ship it all the way here, so the price is definitely not the same. So I think the best thing to do is not to compare. Otherwise, you'll not buy anything because the price will just be outrageous to you. But of course, they also had to transport it all the way here, so it's just best to not think about that.
Yeah, and also another shocking thing, well, not shocking, but frustrating thing was the tickets and parking fees that you have to pay.
As a student, there's an opportunity for you to get a parking spot, and so depending on how close it is to the affiliated hall that they will send you or how far it is, I think the price ranges based on that. And if you want to park outside the university, there are also parking areas. I think I did a video of that, and I am going to kind of do a video of it, like a tour of our university, so at least people know what I'm talking about here. So please look out for that here. So normally, depending on where you park and at what time, I think the price is varied.
And there are a lot of bills from power. Like you pay separately for. I mean, at least here in Saskatchewan, you pay power differently from heating because in the winter you need the heat, right? You pay for gas. So, I mean, you just need to properly manage your money.
Yeah. And I know, like, when I started school, I realized quite a number of students were not really using phones. And that's because of that additional bill they do not need to add to themselves. Yeah, but I also used two phones that I just couldn't, I couldn't do without it. Yeah, so, I mean, there are different ways. Right now, there are several ways to communicate with your family back home when you get here. So it's not really a must to have a phone. But of course, if really, it makes life easier, right? Because there'll be meetings that you might miss because you don't have your phone with you, and always maybe when they send an email, sometimes just having a phone makes it convenient. So I guess that's also another good thing to consider when you're coming.
Yeah, and another thing, it could be really lonely here because you're in a new country. If you don't really know people, even if you know people, everybody is kind of busy with school, with work, with family, with other things. So if you don't really have a family, you don't really have good friends or support group, it could be really lonely. It could be really boring. I know people who they're just stuck indoors, always on Netflix, because they don't have family here and their friends are busy working.
Yeah, so I think for international students, for our university, there's an International Students Association. So
I think it is in
almost universities, almost all universities here. So some of the best ways to connect with people here who are from your country and even other countries is to go to the International Students Association. They will show you a number of countries that have associations. So sometimes they do potlucks, they do outings, and those things are ways of building a community around you so that you don't feel so lonely. And I think also for us, church has also been beneficial to us, where you build family,
a community.
Yes, I think that's what helped Ben to settle in better, because he almost quit school. I was lucky because he had already settled before I came, so I just kind of, his friends became my friends and we just moved on. So I didn't really feel that loneliness and the things that he actually experienced.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't that bad though. I mean,
but you painted this gloomy picture for me that you were dying. Or you're just making a...
No, it wasn't that bad. It was, lonely and boring at times, but I had some good friends around me, and we went to the gym together. And that was another fun thing. You go to the gym at the school and they have everything. We swim, lift weights, play basketball, So if you have good friends who are in the same stage as you are, it really helps because your schedule is kind of the same. So you go to class, you have the same free time, so you spend more time with them.
You work around.
And that really helped me. Probably the last thing, and I guess this is a question I've been asked. I've not experienced this too much, but people have asked, do you experience racism in Canada? And I told them, no, typically no. And
I think that
sometimes you might think you're experiencing racism.
But it's just a human.
And there are several people who, let's say, have not been exposed to people of color. So they might see you and be asking you questions that you might think is stupid. And you might say they are racist, but sometimes just because they don't know and they are trying to know you. There are some people who will look at you weird because
you're just
you look different. Sometimes even some kids.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
I remember one time we went to church and there was this young girl, like she's white, so she kept looking at me. She was staring at me all around. So I asked Brenda, what's wrong with that girl? Then started laughing. I was like, she probably has never seen a black person before. Just allow her to. So I guess that's it. Some people have not really interacted with black people, and it's quite common in the very cold areas in Canada. And it's not because they haven't tried to, it's just that, they've just not seen them before. So sometimes they just get curious, and I think staring is quite common in Canada. People just stare a lot.
Yeah,
some people just stare, like they just go to grocery stores or a public area and you just see someone just staring at you. When they stare, just say hi, just wave so they know you've seen them staring, just move on. It's not like, sometimes people, like Ben said, think that is racism, but it's just, I think it's just a cultural thing, or not really. I don't know. I that's what I have noticed. I just feel sometimes some Canadians just keep staring at you.
Yeah, I mean, there are the few people too who make racist comments.
Oh yeah.
But with stuff like that, just tell people, just ignore them and go about your life, right?
Yeah. Sometimes it's best to, don't give them attention. I mean, when they start, it's difficult because, of course, I mean, you value yourself, and sometimes it's very insulting. But at the end of the day, really, do you want to have that kind of, interaction with somebody you don't know, you might never meet in your life again? If you're working with someone and unfortunately, if your colleague is the one doing that, of course, the company will definitely have some criteria that you can follow. But if you're just meeting a random person being racist, well, you can decide to listen to them or just ignore them and pass. And I think for me, that has always worked for me, just ignore and pass. Because, well, it's up to them. If they're having a bad day, that's up to them.
Yeah.
Alright, so that's what we have for today. We will probably, I mentioned that I'll be doing some video about the tour of my university. This time I went to do it, so it might not be as good. But I hope to get time to do that. So please be looking out for that video. And thank you so much for joining us today. And as always, please subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification so you know whenever we upload new content. Alright, thank you so much, guys. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.